Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this video lesson on key concepts of European history. We are in part 3 of period 2, that's 1648 to 1815. I am Miss Jennifer Blank, and I will be your guide on this journey. All right, so we've already taken a look at several of these key ideas in the first video lesson of period 2. We talked about the various models of political sovereignty, and then in the second video lesson, we talked about the expansion of commerce, and we talked about the scientific revolution. So today, what we're going to be talking about is, let me move my little camera guy there, the everyday experiences that were shaped by demographic, environmental, medical, and technological changes. So here we go. All right, so key concept 2.4, the experiences of everyday life were in fact shaped by demographic, environmental, medical, and technological changes. Okay, demographics, we're talking about gender, age, race, religion, population movements, migrations, immigrations, things like that. So you're talking about people basically and the population in and of itself, just so that we're aware. All right, let me move my guy down here a little bit. All right, so in the 17th century, you have small land holdings, low productivity agricultural practices, poor transportation, and adverse weather that limited and disrupted the food supply. All right, so we hadn't, at least Europe, much of Europe at this point had not yet figured out how to take their agricultural industries and make them more efficient, right? Finding ways to produce more crops with smaller resources, same land, things like that. Transportation was terrible. You don't have a lot of good roads. You don't have a lot of ways other than walking and horseback for people to get around. And lots of bad weather, lots of extreme bad weather, right? So all of this reduced the food supply and also disrupted what was available in terms of how it got to the people who needed it, right? So this caused periodic famines. And anytime you have a famine and massive widespread death, that's going to be, just a tad disruptive, just a little bit, So, but by the 18th century, Europeans began to escape from this Malthusian imbalance. This is from Thomas Malthus. He was an important scholar during during this period in European history, and he had a lot of theories about population. So they began to escape from this Malthusian imbalance between population and the food supply, and this helped to cause steady population growth. When you have steady population growth, you add to the labor force, which allows a society to be more productive. So by the middle of the 18th century, you're talking about the 1750s, right? Higher agricultural productivity and improved transportation increased the food supply, right? This allowed populations to grow, and it also reduced the number of demographic crises. So this was the agricultural revolution effectively, and this is why it matters so much. If you can't eat, you can't do much of anything, right? So once we were able to increase this food supply, and not only increase the amount of it, but also in how we got it to people, this massively improved life on a number of levels, not just in, the obvious, you weren't going hungry and there weren't as many famines, but when you're eating healthy, you're less susceptible to medical problems, right? So there's a lot at stake here in terms of increasing the food supply here that was very important. In the 18th century, the plague finally disappeared as a major epidemic disease. Of course, you're going to still see it crop up. We even see it crop up now. Of course, we have antibiotics now, so it's no longer a death sentence for most people. Plague disappeared as a major epidemic disease, and inoculation reduced smallpox mortality. So now, with the advent of the smallpox vaccine, now we have an ability to fight back against that disease as well, which was a massive, massive killer. All right, so now I want to show you this standard. The consumer revolution of the 18th century was shaped by a new concern for privacy. This encouraged the purchase of new goods for homes and created new venues for leisure activity. So I want to share with you now is this link I have here that actually includes a list of websites that you can go to learn more about life in Europe. So I'm going to go ahead and push that button. We're going to X out of here. I'm going to pop over here. All right, we're going to open this up. So that I can show you this link. So here we go. Here we have recreation and leisure. This is a very interesting website. It's from the University of Michigan. and it's got a lot of good stuff in here. So we have the Beggars Opera up top there, coffee house culture, 18th century blood sports. So that's like, I guess, our equivalent of athletics. So got bull baiting, stick fighting, cockfighting, things like that. Cocks being roosters. 18th century leisure of upper class women. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of websites here that you can check out. I'm going to pop over into mass entertainment real quick and just kind of check out this website. This is specific to 18th century England, but there's a lot of stuff here that you can check out. See, so you have a May Day, which is a popular festival, literature, fairs, festivals, and freaks, pleasure rooms, pleasure gardens, and tea rooms. So things like that. So that's just some interesting stuff you might want to check out that will help you fully understand what this consumer revolution was all about and why there were so many new leisure activities popping up. All right, so by the 18th century, you have family and private life reflected a new demographic pattern and the effects of the commercial revolution. Okay, so the rate of illegitimate births did rise in the 18th century, and population growth was limited by European marriage, that pattern of how marriage occurred. And in some areas, we do have the early practice of birth control. Okay, infant and child mortality decreased, commercial wealth increased, so families dedicated more space and resources to children and child rearing, as well as private living and comfort, right? So this consumer revolution was made possible by the agricultural revolution that came before it, okay? And this is going to shape the modern world in terms of how we see life. In terms of our modern concepts of marriage and children and family, those patterns really began in this period. Obviously, they're not exactly the same, because if you look at how things work then and how things work now, they're vastly different. But this transition into a different sort of family living situation began during this period, largely due to the advent of the agricultural revolution. All right, so we also have, coming back to the agricultural revolution over here, produce more food using fewer workers. So people migrated from rural areas to cities in search of work. So now we're starting to move into the industrial revolution at this point, which all those people who needed additional work, the factories provided that. So there was an eager and a willing and able labor force ready for factories to use and abuse in many cases, but that's for another video. The growth of cities eroded traditional communal values. City governments trained to provide protection and a healthy environment. So this is where you start to see influences of the desires of people to have government step in and actually care for people, because communities weren't doing that as well anymore. The concentration of the poor in cities led to a greater awareness of poverty, crime, and prostitution as social problems. This prompted increased efforts to police these groups, to stop this business of immorality and horrible living and things like that. But unfortunately, at this period, people are blaming the poor. They are blaming those who seem to have no other option, as opposed to looking at the circumstances surrounding these people that would result in them choosing these professions or being stuck in these sorts of awful living situations. As time marches on and as you get into the 19th century, these reform efforts will shift to the circumstances surrounding these social problems as opposed to the individuals who were stuck in them. And we'll explore that in a later video lesson also. That is the end of period 2, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you learned what you needed to, and I will see you in period 3. Have a good one.